Hello guys, today we are going to discuss about value chain analysis. This is one of the most important topics in strategic management and it is one of the most important tools used by organizations around the globe. Basically, value chain analysis is a tool for working out how you can create the greatest possible value for your customers. Uh, in a business, what happens is people are paid to transform raw inputs into something that is worth for people to pay money for. Now, this is easy to see in manufacturing companies where a manufacturer adds value by taking the raw materials of little use to the end users and transform that raw material into something uh, that people are prepared to pay money for. For example, let's talk about paper company. Paper company uses wood pulp as its raw material. Now, the wood pulp itself doesn't have much value to the final customers, but once it gets converted, once it gets transformed into a final product that's paper, then customers are willing to pay money for that paper. So if you could see, all those activities carried out so as to transform that wood pulp into a final paper actually adds value to the final product. This idea is as important in service industries as well, where people use inputs of time, knowledge, equipment, and systems to create services of real value to the person being served, that is, customer. Now, this is very important for you to understand. In most cases, the more value you create, more people are willing to pay for the product or the service that you produce, and more they will keep on buying from you. So most important task for you is to figure out how do you create a value, how you as an individual can create a value, your team could create a value, or your company as a whole can create a value for the customers. So if you have to figure this out, this is where the value chain analysis becomes a very important or useful tool. Value chain analysis helps you to identify the ways in which you create value for your customers, and then helps you think through how you can maximize this value, whether through providing a very good quality products, great service, or by doing your jobs efficiently and effectively. The concept of value chain was first introduced by Michael Porter in his book titled Competitive Advantage, published in 1985. He defines value chain as a linked set of value creating activities, beginning with basic raw materials and ending with distributors getting final goods into hands of customers. So as said earlier, it is a set of activity that involve transforming a raw material into a final product and taking this final product into the hands of customers. Uh, when we analyze a value chain, basically we do it in two levels. One is corporate value chain analysis and other is industry value chain analysis. First, we're going to discuss corporate value chain analysis. Corporate value chain means individual firms value chain. So Michael Porter says that there are two sets of activities that helps in creating value for the customers. These activities are primary activities, and the other activities are support activities or supporting activities, or it's also called as secondary activities. So primary activities are the most basic activities that happens within the organization so as to transform that raw material into a final product. For example, a design of a product, creation of that product, delivery of that product to our customers, marketing of that product, so that everyone in the market gets aware about that product, and also after sales services. So these are, primary activities that happens in the organization, so that our raw materials gets transformed into a final product and reaches in the hands of customers. Now, support activities or secondary activities are those activities that enables primary activities to take place. So, secondary activity may involve procurement of raw materials or human resource management for the production, and also it may also involve farms infrastructure like accounting, finance, strategic planning, etc., etc. Most important thing for you to understand here is, don't confuse that, an organization will have just one value chain. A number of value chain the organization will have depends on in a number of uh, product lines that the company may have. So each product line has its own distinct value chain. The main reason behind conducting this value chain analysis is to find out which activities are most valuable. Valuable means, if some activities are more valuable, these activities becomes a source of a competitive advantage for the farm. So if you do a proper analysis of the activities that happens within the organization, then you'll have a very clear sense of where your advantages are coming from and where your disadvantages are coming from. So this is how a value chain analysis looks like. A corporate value chain analysis looks like. So as you can see, these activities like inbound logistics, operation, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, services are primary activities. And farm infrastructure, human resource management, technology development, procurement, all these are support activities. So basically what happens is, these primary activities will be supported by these secondary activities. So in primary activities, you can see there is inbound logistics. So inbound logistics basically involves, receiving raw materials, storing these raw materials, and distributing these raw materials to a concerned department so that a machining could take place, and then the process of transforming this inputs into an output could take place. So the second activity is this operations. This operations transform these various inputs into the final product or services, and activities could include this machining, packaging, assembling and testing. All those things happens here. The other one is outbound logistics. So outbound logistics collect, store and distribute the product to customers. Activities could be like warehousing and distribution of finished products. All those activities involving warehousing of this final product and distribution of this final product to uh, retailers maybe or wholesalers will take place here. The other primary activity is marketing and sales. This involves advertising, promotion, thinking about coming up with the pricing strategies and establishing distribution channel relations. All these activities will happen here. So your primary activities doesn't end with marketing and sales of your product. You have to, in most cases, provide services as well. Services may in the form of services may be in the form of installation. If you are working in electronic company, for example, if you're producing ACs, then you may help your customers by installing those products in their places. You can also provide, repairing services to your customers. Sometimes your product may have early dysfunction, so customers may come to you seeking your help to repair the product. So you may provide those services, and um sometimes you may also help your customers, especially in uh, automobiles industry, by providing parts for the main product. So this comes in the form of services. So services will add a value to your product. It will give a perception of efficiency and effectiveness of your product to the customers. So these are all primary activities that happens in the organization. Now, in order to support these primary activities, we have support activities. So the support activity involves forms infrastructure, which includes general management, accounting, finance, and strategic planning functions. As you know, primary activities will not take place if these functions are not there. So, general management, accounting, finance, strategic planning functions will enable these primary activities to take place. Other support activities uh, is human resource management. So, human resource management activities aim at meeting the personal requirement of manufacturing and marketing departments by proper selection of staff, their training and development. Technology development is another support activity which involves research and development, product and process improvement. Research and development activities are very much linked with manufacturing as well as marketing activities, as you can see. It aims at developing new products or process technology that provide additional benefit to customers, improve quality, lower the cost of manufacturing, and ultimately contribute to the creation of value. So, the other support activity is this procurement, which involves purchasing of raw materials, machines, supplies, so as to give uninterrupted supply of material at minimum cost so that these primary activities are not disturbed. So these are all support activities which actually enables the primary activities to take place. So when the customers are making a payment for the product, customers are actually paying for all these activities in the organization. Let's assume this value chain analysis is the analysis of a one product line. Okay, maybe an apple juice, let's say. So this is a value chain for apple juice. So when the final product, the apple juice, gets to a customer, customers are not just paying for that bottle. They are actually making a payment for all these activities. So that's why it is called value creating activities. So if you can add efficiency in terms of these activities, in the way you conduct these activities in the organization, it's going to add a profit margin to your product. So if you could reduce a cost involved in conducting these activities, or if you could add efficiency uh, in terms of carrying out these functions in your organization, then you're actually reducing your cost of production. So once you reduce your cost of production, that means you're actually adding a more profit margin to your product. So the corporate value chain analysis involves these many stages. So this is a process of value chain analysis. The first one is examine each product line's value chain in terms of various activities involved in producing that product or services. So here you can basically ask a few critical questions like which activities can be considered as strength or core competency or weaknesses or core deficiencies. You can also ask questions like do any of the strength provide competitive advantage and can they be leveled as distinctive competencies? So these are the key questions that you asked in uh, process stage number one. So in the second stage, you examine the linkages within each product line's value chain. For example, sometimes there are chances of overlapping of activities. So this is going to be an additional cost for the company. For example, uh, quality control could be one functions in the organization. So these functions could be done in the production process itself. So before the product actually goes into the market through a salesperson and people realize that there's a defect in the product and it has to be recalled. So before that happens, if somebody is there in the production process itself who can actually check the quality of the product, whether the product is defective or not, then the cost involved in recalling that product and issuing another product to a customer could be saved. So that is the main reason behind trying to find linkages within this value creating activities in the organization so that you could increase your efficiency. You could also check whether there is overlapping of activities and reduce the cost involved uh, in carrying out activities that could be done by one function rather than the same activity be done by different functions in the organization. The third is examine the potential synergies among the value chains of different product lines or business units. So, as we have discussed before, you know, different product lines will have their different value chain. For example, in my company, if there are three product lines, for example, juice maybe one, jam could be other, pickle could be other one. So these are three product lines that I have in my company. So each of these product lines will have their own value chain, and within these value chains there will be different activities so as to reach the product to the final customers. So, what this number three means is that you try to examine the potential synergies among the value chains of different product lines or business unit, meaning you try to find out whether you could bring out a synergy among different activities that happens in different product lines so that you don't have to spend additional budget for similar activities that happens in different product lines which could be synchronized and made one. For example, it is not necessary for you to have a different procurement officer in order to procure the raw materials for pickle, jam and juice. These are different product lines I have, isn't it? One procurement personnel can procure raw materials for all of these product lines. It is not necessary that I need to have different officials to look after all these procurement activities. So this could be one way of synergizing activities or bringing in synergies among activities that happens in different value chain. So this is corporate value chain analysis, and the next we have industry value chain analysis. So basically in industry value chain analysis, what happens is you basically get a overview of how things are managed in the industry. So industry value chain analysis is going to give you a big picture of how things are managed in your industry, how your competitors or the players in your industry are getting their raw materials, storing them, processing them, and then distributing it to the final customers. And you'll also have an opportunity if you could do this industry value chain analysis properly. You'll have an opportunity to look at you know how different players do things differently, and you'll also get an idea about how you can do things better than them so that you'll have an added advantage. You'll have an insight about how a better players in your industry are doing things in a better manner. So the value chains of most industries can be split into two segments. One is upstream and other one is downstream segments. So upstream segments basically includes procurement of raw materials, storage of raw materials, all those things that happens before the production actually starts. So this is upstream activities. And downstream activities means once the production is completed, the goods has to reach the final customer. So all those activities after you have produce your product, all those activities that involves reaching the produced product to your final customers. So this is downstream segment. So if you could have a good insight about upstream activities and downstream activities, you'll be able to find differences in ways things are done by different players here in your industry. So you can try to find a better way of managing activities so that you'll have more advantage as an individual player in that particular industry. So this is all to do with the value chain analysis. If you have some doubts, you can contact me. Thank you and stay safe.